How's it going, everyone? Hope you're having an awesome day so far. Wraith here with another Doom Eternal video, and this time we're going to definitely talk about some cool updates and new info as far as Doom Eternal and the Ancient Gods Part 2. We got to learn a lot of this new stuff from the recent stream from Hugo Martin, where he was playing in Terrace Nabad. But of course, before we get going, if you're new here and love Doom and similar content, then definitely be sure to subscribe and set up notifications so you can stay up to date with the channel and whatnot. I really appreciate all the support on the channel, and of course we're still looking to get up to that 50,000 subscriber goal of mine, and we're definitely on the right track, so definitely stick around if you enjoy what you see here. Alright, well, let's get going. As of recently, we've of course seen a lot of different streams from Hugo Martin and learned gradually a lot of new stuff for the Ancient Gods Part 2. In this most recent one, first of all, kind of starting off, we did get to see, some juicy details as far as like some fan theories and whatnot. Especially the first one I wanted to mention, of course, was about the Gladiator. So since he did play the level of Sentinel Prime, one big theory that a lot of people had was that the Gladiator had to have been one of like the Hell Knights or Barons from the original games. And of course, Hugo did confirm that, of course, the Gladiator at least is an homage to the classic demons from the OG Doom. So at least that's good to know, because, a lot of us had that theory that, of course, he was something from that time period. It definitely is nice to have that confirmation. And so that's great that at least with these streams, we can get a lot of good answers from Hugo himself. And it is great that we're getting a lot of shout outs for a lot of the Doom YouTubers, especially like, Alston, Under the Mayo, Midnight. A lot of those guys are definitely getting the recognition they deserve. So it's great that, of course, we know that Hugo and the developers actually know who we are. So that's always a great thing to know, that the effort that we put into our videos are actually being noticed, which is good. But other than that, it's great to see that. One thing, of course, I wanted to also mention is that if you watched the stream, it seemed like Hugo had the game crash on him right after answering my question. So I apologize if it was because of me, or it was just because Hugo was talking a lot of smack. So I think it was probably that he was being a little prideful with it. So I don't know, it was funny because, yeah, this was definitely a really long stream. What was it, like 3.5 hours or so? But all for good reason. And the thing is, I could honestly watch Hugo play Doom Eternal all day if I really had the time. So I think a lot of us could agree on that. But moving on, one huge thing that he did mention was about the Divinity Machine will actually play a big part in DLC 2. Now, for those who don't know about the Divinity Machine, of course, this is something that is back in the lore for Doom Eternal, where it basically made the Doom guy the Doomslayer. See, the Divinity Machine was given to the Sentinel people as a way to find the impure, but of course, to the makers, it was more their way to find who was the destroyer. At least the one in their prophecy is the one who's going to destroy the makers. Now, of course, with Samur, he did know who Doomguy was as soon as he entered into their world. So he knew that he needed to bless the Slayer because of what he needed to do in the future. So the Divinity Machine definitely is going to really make a lot of sense to be involved with Part 2 of the Ancient Gods, because first of all, it does have the Slayer's mark on it, which Davoth, or the Dark Lord, has that mark on his back. So what does that really mean? We know that, of course, the Slayer mark kind of represents a sword driving down into the depths of hell. So that meaning might actually be different, or at least the interpretation of what the Sentinels thought it could mean, or at least the makers as well. Because this symbol might date back all the way to the creation of the world that Davoth lived in before it became hell. So we're definitely going to find out a lot more about that and why it's going to be so important, because when you put in Fallen Knight Sentinels into the Divinity Machine, it creates Marauders. So I'm almost curious, like, what would it be like if we were to put demons into it? Because these are creatures that would probably react a lot differently than putting a human into it. So that might be what we'll find out, obviously, with the Divinity Machine. Of course, I don't think the Dark Lord is going to use it. And on top of that, just also to mention is that the Divinity Machine is destroyed on Taras Navad. But of course, there could always be a possibility of another Divinity Machine being in Urdak, because that was something that was given from the makers to the Sentinels. So who's to say that there isn't another one on Urdak? Other than that, that was a really cool thing that Hugo did mention. I thought that was really important to talk about. Another question, though, of course, that was answered that I thought was really important was about the other cities that we see on the map when just before doing the level of Exultia. Now, we do see these other cities among Exultia and Terrace Nabad, such as Neros, Ardur, and Care Ladur. I probably didn't say those right, but the question was that if we could see those cities or if they're part of the canon or whatnot of Doom Eternal. Now with Hugo, he did mention that they were canon, and of course we could potentially visit those cities in the future. So I don't think we'll see them technically in part 2 of the Ancient Gods, but if the next Doom game has anything to do with Sentinel Prime, Argent D'Nur, or whatnot, then yeah, no doubt I think that we'll be able to visit those cities. So that is a cool thing to at least know that we will be able to see those other cities, possibly anyway, because the weird thing is that of course the planet is named Argent D'Nur, but on the map it says Sentinel Prime. So I don't know, either there's some miscommunication as far as locations or whatnot, but definitely something to kind of point out why it says Sentinel Prime there, then it has those cities, but you go to level Sentinel Prime, but what is that city? So I don't know if Sentinel Prime necessarily is a city or it's more of just an area, just maybe the area of the more important cities. So we have a lot of these cities are definitely really important and mentioned in the lore as well. Now moving on, of course, to the new info for the Ancient Gods Part 2, Hugo mentioned something called Escalation Encounters. Now, of course, the way that I interpreted what this means is basically just a Gore Nest encounter, kind of like the Slayer Gates in Doom Eternal, and then, of course, the ones we have in the Ancient Gods Part 1. So these are going to be very challenging, but achievable. And so that's great to know because at least Hugo is playtesting these, and so if he can do it, then I'm sure most of us can be able to handle it. You know, of course, he could have been playing on lower difficulties, but that's not to say that they're going to be completely impossible, unlike, you know, the Slayer Gate on the Holt, for instance. Of course, that's like near impossible. But anyway, this will be great because it's obviously going to give more challenges, you know, because with these DLCs, these are obviously going to cater more to the core players, the ones who have been playing the game for hundreds of hours and those who just understand the mechanics. Like if you're a casual or you just barely got into Doom Eternal, obviously the DLCs, you know, if you like the challenge, then yeah, of course, you can definitely get into it. But if you're just very new to it, I definitely don't recommend, you know, playing it until you've at least understood the mechanics and could do the Doom dance very well. The cool thing that he mentioned is that there will be one encounter per level. So he did say that the first one will be kind of like for everyone. So I would imagine it would be a pretty simple one, but still challenging. And then the other ones will be more for high level players only. So the first one obviously is going to give you a good taste of it. And then the other ones, well, of course, it's going to be a lot more difficult. So that's an awesome detail that we now know for this week for Doom Eternal, the Ancient Gods Part 2. Now, of course, with something that they're going to talk about for next week is for not necessarily a new enemy, but a new AI. So with this one, of course, would be something across the lines of an ambient enemy, for instance. So of course we've had the big tentacle, the spirit, and the turrets, which were new in the Ancient Gods Part 1. And then of course so far now we know about the Screecher, which is basically just a walking buff totem. So I'm really curious on what this new AI is going to be, whether or not it's going to be something that is actually ambient or something that will just really change up the environment in a big way. And of course next week they will actually expand a little bit more on the new weapon. I think that's what a lot of us want to know, is what is the new weapon, because this is going to really change up the whole pace of the gameplay. So we'll definitely see what that's going to be. And then of course Josh at the last part, he did mention that they'll talk about a new demon, not necessarily next week, but probably either the stream after or the one after that. There's really not that many streams left. If anything, there's probably going to be just next week and then the week after. I think that's about it. So other than that, that's pretty much everything. There was one last thing, of course, I forgot to mention, is that the no target bug supposedly is fixed. So I don't know, I've been trying it out recently and I still have issues with it, so it could technically be a little bit better than what it was before, but as far as my current gameplay from playing today, I'm still having some issues with it. But other than that, that's all the details that we have so far for this week for the Ancient Gods Part 2. Of course, if you liked what you've seen here, definitely be sure to like, subscribe, and share the video so we can get it out there more. Also, be sure to check out my Discord along with my other social media accounts at RipNtear Gaming. Hope you guys have a good one, and until next time, don't forget to rip and tear. Peace.